Have you ever been so autistic you travelled halfway across the country to see a one-of-a-kind animal and made a video all about her and the experience? And then when that animal passed away, some news outlet decided to use your video as B-roll without credit, gaining hundreds of thousands of engagements across several mediums while your original work didn't even have 500 views yet? 1 year ago, this is exactly what happened to me. G'day web surfers, I'm Kabbaway, and today we're going to talk about the news industry and the way it harms online creators. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of today's video, I wanted to preface this by saying I will not be naming the news outlet that was involved in this incident. Given how niche this subject matter is, I doubt it'd be hard for viewers to figure out which one it was, but I strongly discourage anyone from harassing them about this incident. I repeat, if you find out who did this, do not harass them. If you want to do something that would actually support me, please check out the original video and share it with someone you think will enjoy it. It'll give you a lot of context for this situation, and even though it's not my best editing work, it's still one of my favorite videos to date. I'm trying to get to 1,000 Kabbidges for a face reveal, so if you like fantasy games mixed with the occasional video essay and miscellaneous content, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you want to learn more about Snowy specifically, you can check out the wiki page I helped edit. And lastly, please go sign the petition I made to ask Adelaide Zoo to give her an on-site memorial. Being a literal one-of-a-kind meerkat and one of their most popular animals, I think she more than qualifies for such a commemoration. It would mean the world to me if her impact could be recognised and her legacy shared for generations to come, so please help me make that happen. With all that being said, let's talk about what happened. For those of you who haven't seen the original video, I've had a special interest in meerkats since I was 10. I learned about Snowy on a live stream in April 2020 and dreamed of seeing her in person until I was finally able to on the 26th of May 2023. I sat by her enclosure for hours, just watching her and her brothers while snapping as many photos and videos as I could on the hand-me-down phone I was using in lieu of an iPad at the time. One of my favourite shots of the day was this one, where Snowy climbed up a tree branch and looked around. Despite half the frame being taken up by my jeans, I was so proud to get that moment on camera. It was such a fun action shot showcasing her regal curiosity. On the flight home, I specifically remember searching for that shot and earmarking it for the video because I knew it was one of the best shots I'd taken. I released that video on the 3rd of July to celebrate World Meerkat Day. Sharing my special interests with the world is what this channel has always been about. So this video of me nerding out about my favourite animals for 14 minutes remains one of my proudest, most satisfying videos to date. In the back of my mind, I knew Snowy was getting old and that she probably wouldn't live much longer, so I was extra grateful for being able to see her in person when I did. In the months that followed, even though I don't really use Facebook, I kept checking the Adelaide Zoo page for updates. Now, fast forward to the 2nd of November 2024. I was recovering from top surgery I'd had in September and was fighting the final boss in Echoes of Wisdom, which I'd fought 8 days earlier. Because I was busy playing through the game, I hadn't been online much, so I wasn't checking for Snowy updates. I beat the game around 2 PM and felt pretty good about finishing a game for the first time in years. Afterwards, I decided to check what I'd missed during the week I wasn't online. That's when I saw the news that Snowy had been put to sleep 2 days earlier on the 31st of October 2024. I was devastated. The joy of finishing Echoes utterly deflated. So much so, I spent the rest of the afternoon crying and being consoled by my housemates. Animal deaths have always hit me especially hard, and the fact that she was one of my favourites made it even worse. Snowy helped keep me alive during the pandemic and a personal crisis in 2021. Wanting to know everything I could about her and to visit her one day gave me something to live for. And now, she was gone. This special little creature that gave me a speck of joy in a world that feels more bleak and hostile with every waking moment. She was gone. Later that evening, my housemates had all gone to bed, but I knew I still needed company while reeling from the news, so I got on a voice chat with some online friends. We were just hanging out and chatting, so I decided to keep scanning the internet for more information and reactions to Snowy's passing. And then I saw it. The thumbnail of a news broadcast uploaded to Facebook, and it looked very familiar. Taken aback, I immediately clicked on the video and watched it. It was 28 seconds long, giving a brief overview of Snowy's life, and around half of the B-roll they used was from my video. My knee-jerk reaction was to be like, oh wow, my content's on the news, that's awesome! Until I rewatched it and realized they didn't attribute me anywhere. Not on screen, in the description, or in the comments. Not only did they use 14 seconds from my own video, but I immediately recognized the other clips and photos they used. 3 seconds from another YouTube video by Blingmcqueen, as well as an unwatermarked image by Adelaide Zoo photographer Adrian Mann. All without credit. I quickly found a reel from the same news outlet with identical script and B-roll but a different presenter. I was shocked and exasperated, to say the very least. I understood them using my footage. They were covering a niche topic, and my video and playlist were convenient resources for them. But for them to not even take 5 seconds to type out a caption acknowledging where they got their B-roll from felt incredibly lazy and insulting. Worst of all, because they'd zoomed in on all the footage they used, and overlaid their own branding on top of it, there was a risk of people misattributing the visual material to the news outlet. I also couldn't help but laugh at the irony. I had made this video hoping it would be educational and useful for those wanting to know more about Snowy. I guess it was, just not in the way I expected. The use of my personal favourite shot further poured salt into the wound. And that's without even mentioning the anguish of having to store my grief for Snowy in order to deal with this situation. But I think the worst part is that I felt exploited. The feeling that someone took advantage of your special interest and passion project is absolutely horrible, and I would never wish it on anyone. At first, I didn't even know how to begin dealing with this. All I knew is that I had to do something. I started by browsing the internet for people who had been in a similar situation to me. I quickly ruled out submitting a copyright report form to Facebook because I was afraid of handing out my personal details, especially to a major broadcaster. After some sleep and discussions with my friends and housemates, the next day I decided to send them a complaint structured like a letter of demand. I figured a strongly worded email would be a great first step to gauge whether legal escalation was necessary. With some research help from friends, I spent the next few days drafting that complaint. In it, I explained why I believed their use of my content was a violation of my rights as the original owner and creator of the footage, and how the lack of attribution impacted me personally. For the sake of brevity and confidentiality, I won't share the whole thing, but here's the gist of it. I started by introducing myself as the creator and owner of the Snowy video, and then provided a detailed description of the footage and images used, providing links and comparative screenshots with timestamps. I acknowledged that reporting the news usually falls under fair dealings exemption, meaning they did not have to ask my permission before using my content, but pointed out that a crucial caveat had been overlooked. Here in Australia, in order for fair dealings exemption to apply, sufficient acknowledgement has to be given. Sufficient acknowledgement basically means citing your sources. Include credit to the title, description, and/or creators of a work where possible. I argued that due to the omission of any information that would identify me as the owner of the content, whether it be my username, logo, watermark, or the title of the video, I believed their use of my content was not covered under fair dealings exemption and could therefore constitute a violation of copyright law. I elaborated that creators also have the moral right to be recognized for their work and to not have it miscredited to someone else. something I was at risk of by the news outlet overlaying their own branding on top of the clips and images. I went on to illustrate the disparity between my level of engagement and theirs. In just a few days, their 2 Facebook uploads had accumulated over 284 times the amount of views my video had in its 492-day lifetime. For emphasis, I pointed out that this statistic was on par with the lifetime view count of my entire channel at the time. I further criticized the fact that since they are a for-profit broadcaster, they likely profited from my uncredited content. Content that costed hundreds of dollars via travel and accommodation costs. Not to mention me confronting my fear of flying and sensory overload in order to capture that footage in the first place. Finally, I expressed the personal impacts it had on me and acknowledged the use of Blingmcqueen's media before laying out my requests. I asked for 3 things to happen. 1. That past broadcasts be edited to include credit. 2. That any future broadcasts include credit. And 3. That financial compensation be given if possible. Though that last one was not a huge priority to me and was more so added at the recommendation of others. I did not ask for the removal of any of the videos containing my content, since I appreciated the coverage on Snowy, which allowed more people to know about her. I gave them 2 weeks to comply with these requests, otherwise I would have to consider taking legal action. At 9:37 PM on the 6th of November 2024, I emailed them my complaint. By 10:41, just over an hour after my email was sent, the 2 videos disappeared from Facebook, and the links no longer worked. I would later find dead links for 2 videos on their TikTok account and 1 from Instagram. In total, they had at least 5 videos across social media, not even including the original live TV broadcasts. I can only imagine how much engagement and revenue the news outlet accumulated all up. Apart from an auto reply I got 12 minutes after sending my email, I didn't get a human response. To this day, I have yet to receive any sort of direct apology, explanation, or reparation offer. Needless to say, this was not the ideal outcome for me. It felt more like a scramble to hide evidence than an honourable effort to take accountability. I had to wonder whether they even read the full complaint, or if they just reacted based on the title and first few paragraphs alone. It just felt so dubious that they didn't even respect me enough to give a response, let alone give me credit for the content they used, which was the main issue in the first place. But at least they took my complaint seriously and can no longer profit from it, at least. As a result, I ultimately refrained from legal escalation. Based on their reaction, it seems like I may have been within my rights to sue and would have had a pretty decent case if it came to that. But as a poor disabled person living on a pension, it would have been unimaginably difficult to go to court just to stick my name on the B-roll of a story already out of the news cycle. If there's one thing I wish I'd done differently, it would be to take the time to seek legal advice before sending the email. Maybe with legal backing, there'd be more accountability and pressure to heed my requests without removing the evidence, but alas, what's done is done. If you ever find yourself in a similar situation to me, I highly recommend seeking legal advice and guidance before reaching out, preferably from a lawyer specializing in copyright and intellectual property if possible. Again, if you want to support me, please subscribe and support my original video as well as the Snowy Memorial petition. And once more, please do not seek out and harass this news outlet. This incident blew over as quickly as it happened, and I don't want to draw out this drama. I simply want to get this off my chest and turn it into something constructive. I wish I could say this experience was unique to me, but unfortunately, I am far from the only one who's had their content used like this. In my quest to find others in a similar situation, I found countless anecdotes across the internet of people who had had their content misused on the news. Some weren't asked for permission but were credited. Others were asked for permission but the content was used before they could answer. And more still didn't get permission or get credited at all. One of the most infamous cases I came across was that of YouTuber and engineer Adrian Mann, whose robotic snake legs video was reported on by CNN without permission. Now, fair use in the US works a bit differently than fair dealings here in Australia. As a news outlet, CNN appears to be covered under fair use. In fact, unlike in Australia, sufficient acknowledgement doesn't seem to be a stipulation for fair use in US copyright law. Despite this, CNN did give on-screen credit for the B-roll they used. So, technically speaking, CNN's reporting seems to have been done by the book, and there's not much Pan can do about it. In fact, his handling of the situation was a bit spiteful, misguided, and ultimately counterproductive in my opinion. In saying that, I believe he's valid to feel like his content was misused, and that CNN isn't entirely above criticism here. Their reporting just uses text to summarize Pan's video, only adding in an Instagram photo from the snake breeder he visited and a random clip from a different video made by University of Florida Health. While showing this clip, the caption reads, "Scientists believe the evolution of snakes caused them to lose their legs more than 100 million years ago." This might give the impression that CNN did some extra research to provide some transformative commentary to Pan's video, right? Well, Dr. Martin J. Cohn provides a lot of cool facts about snake evolution in this other video, but he never mentions the time frame in which they lost their legs. So where did CNN get this figure from? From what I can tell, this also came from Pan's video, right near the end.
150 million years of evolutionary mistakes reversed in a single day.
Not only that, but his video already included an explanation of snake evolution and a demonstration of their vestigial legs. So what was the point in adding that UFH video? In my opinion, it seems like CNN had nothing to add to Pan's video, given how comprehensive it already was. So they seem to have just paraphrased one of his closing remarks, making it sound less colloquial and more vaguely academic sounding, and then paired that with a tangentially related clip from an academic institute to give the illusion of transformative value. In my opinion, it just feels like lazy reporting, doing the bare minimum to avoid outright plagiarism. And the worst part? Even though CNN credited Pan because they already summarized the whole video while spoiling the most exciting parts, viewers have little incentive to go check out his content directly. And even if they do, they're likely to skip most of it to see the results. Between CNN's for-profit status and posting their video online where them and Pan's market overlap, one could make the argument that CNN may be skirting the line in what constitutes fair use, but of course I'm only speculating based on my rudimentary understanding of copyright law here. Regardless of the legalities, I believe CNN could have done a better job in covering this story. For example, writing an article about it and including a link to Pan's video would introduce a new audience to his content without depriving him of direct engagement. If they absolutely had to use an audiovisual format, reaching out to him, other engineers and/or snake experts for interviews could not only provide additional insights on the subject matter, but also elevate underrepresented voices rather than seemingly exploiting them. If you like engineering videos with fun inventions, go check out Pan's channel, especially his snake legs video as well as the 2 follow-up videos. So far, I've only talked about examples concerning brief headlines on niche, trivial topics where it's relatively easy to find the sources in a quick web search. Imagine what it would be like if a news outlet had also used our scripts, copying everything from their references to the structure of their talking points. Imagine if we'd been discussing a much more serious topic and had to spend weeks or months chasing leads and conducting interviews in order to share genuinely groundbreaking news with the world. Enter Blingmcqueen, a small YouTuber who makes exposés on the disturbing content and subcultures found on Roblox. In March of this year, Bling made 2 videos investigating a group that recreates real-life crimes and tragedies. This particular niche of true crimers was obscure and reclusive at the time, So Bling's coverage of their activities was genuinely impressive, thoroughly investigating the topic and gaining exclusive intel via interviews with community members. About a month later, the Anti-Defamation League published an article on the same topic. Their talking points were practically identical to those in Bling's videos, including very specific details that were only made publicly available because of said videos. To make matters worse, ADL allegedly claimed to have uncovered this information themselves on multiple occasions. In turn, other news outlets attributed this journalism to ADL, seemingly without doing their own research to verify where this information came from. Bling already made a comprehensive video dissecting this incident, so I won't rehash what they said. Go check it out in the description or card. Now, I'm already critical of ADL for its very pro-Israel bias, but even disregarding that, the journalism demonstrated in their article leaves a lot to be desired. As I mentioned with Pan's video, writing an article about a YouTube video has the potential to be one of the more ethical ways of reporting on online audiovisual content. Had ADL fully credited Bling for inspiring the article and uncovering the bulk of the information in it, this could have been an excellent example of that, especially if they'd reached out for further insight. Unfortunately, in my opinion, their coverage was nothing short of exploitative. As far as I'm aware, Bling only got credited for a single screenshot. You may think, well, at least they got credited for something, but even then there's a few insidious side effects. First off, the inclusion of the screenshot at all is pretty damning. It proves that ADL have at least watched Bling's content. And even without a hyperlink, the inclusion of a username makes it easy to trace the source back to Bling, in turn making it even harder to deny where the bulk of the information comes from. The audacity alone is in poor enough taste, but that's not the only issue here. The other screenshots used in their article come from TikTok and the usernames have been censored, most likely due to ADL rightfully wanting to avoid directing its audience towards content that glorifies violence. So by keeping Bling's name uncensored, ADL understand that their content doesn't condone that stuff. Of course they do, they probably wouldn't have an article based on it otherwise. But they can't give further context for the screenshot because that would effectively amount to an admission that they allegedly just copied Bling's work and took the credit for it. So now, because Bling's credit is devoid of all context, they are now at risk of being misconstrued as one of the extremists, potentially marring their reputation as a result. Not only that, but they're at risk of harassment by impulsive bandwagoners who might not care to check the context of their videos, let alone realize they're the one who actually did the journalism to uncover this news in the first place. The only silver lining I can think of is that they did provide some commentary of their own in the Why This Matters section, but it's such a small part of the article compared to the rest of it that it's hardly any consolation. Please go and check out Bling's videos as well as the follow-up. Links in the description and card. In fact, go check out their videos in general if you're interested in Roblox and all the creepy stuff that can be found on there. So why am I telling you all this? Well, there's been a recent pushback against plagiarism in online spaces thanks to people like Blingmcqueen and Jack's Films. And I feel like last year's incident gives me something to add to the conversation. An angle that I haven't seen many YouTubers explore in the ongoing discussion. Think back to the last time you watched or read the news. Did you even notice whether they cited where they sourced their B-roll from? Does it feel like they just plucked a viral moment from social media and made a 30-second summary on it? Maybe with some uncredited quotes from the comments? And propaganda. Same with articles. Have you read a news story and felt like they're just summarizing, paraphrasing, or even flat out regurgitating content while doing little to no actually investigative journalism? With the rise of the digital age, it has never been easier for news outlets to find something to cover. One topical web search is enough to substantiate multiple reports in a matter of minutes. And with video sharing becoming increasingly widespread, news outlets can save time, money and resources by not traveling to locations to film footage for their stories. But this convenience seems to have caused widespread complacency and a decline in journalistic integrity in the news industry. It's always been deemed good academic integrity to cite your sources, no matter how trivial and informal, so the audience can do their own research to fact-check and evaluate the quality of the reporting. It's also great for the owners of the original content, since it can lead to more people engaging directly with their content, whether it's part of their job or a hobby. Despite how integral social media and indie digital content has become in our lives, there's still this pervasive attitude of condescension and dismissal against them. It doesn't matter how much time, money, effort, or resources went into a work, it's not seen as legitimate content worthy of protection against plagiarism and copyright infringement. In no other context would it be acceptable, let alone popular, to victim blame creators by claiming they signed away the rights of their content just by sharing it with the public. Perhaps this prejudice against online content is part of the reason why so many news outlets don't practice due diligence where they otherwise would. It should come as no surprise to anyone that the media holds tremendous power over society. It serves as a gauge, tool, and cornerstone for the systems it exists within. In the case of late-stage capitalism, the media landscape reflects its rigid obsession with quantitative products and results over the actual quality of the work itself, and especially the people that sustain its operations. Capitalism incentivizes exploitation, and the media has proven time and time again to perpetuate that injustice. Inevitably, there's been a growing dissatisfaction with the status quo, leading to independents and smaller teams to step up and be the change they want to see in the world. With the enshittification of mainstream media services, they are increasingly threatened by these smaller projects. We're seeing it everywhere. In film, game development, art, journalism. The evolution of internet culture has shattered the illusion that only the most rich and powerful people are competent enough to inform and entertain the public. Despite having the most to lose, their unmatched passion and dedication continues to produce some of the most indispensable work in recent memory. Hell, I may disagree with Friendly Jordy's centrist politics, but I respect him and his team's hard work in exposing corruption in the Australian government and media, at grave personal risk. What they've gone through in the last 3 years is nothing short of harrowing. And their journalism has far more value and integrity than just about anything churned out of the newsroom. Journalism should be more than stating surface-level facts and observations. Just about anyone can do that. And it shouldn't be dominated and primarily motivated by analytics, reputation, profit, and sensationalism. What makes journalism far more interesting and important to society is when it dares to dig deeper, asking how and why the subject matter exists as it does, actively seeking out primary sources and uncovering information and voices which would otherwise remain unheard. It is a risky but rewarding profession for those who are willing to break away from the rat race of the newsroom. On the flip side, I don't think it's fair to fully scapegoat individual journalists employed by these mainstream news broadcasters. Capitalism not only incentivizes exploitation, it necessitates it, and the news cycle does so by way of its extremely tight deadlines. Having to pump out multiple reports every 15 to 60 minutes, employees have very little time to research and prepare their work before it's released to the public. Under such conditions, I can understand why they'd be tempted or pressured to cut corners by haphazardly using the most convenient resources at their disposal. They have to maintain this breakneck pace in order to keep their jobs and earn enough money to survive in an increasingly unaffordable world. But therein lies the crux of the issue. As long as digital content, and our lifestyles in general, demand instant gratification, creators and employees alike are going to keep being exploited by these glorified content mills. I think there needs to be serious discussion in how to reform copyright law. Much of it was drafted and implemented before the internet as we know it today was born, enabling the oversights and loopholes I've been discussing. In my opinion, news outlets should not be automatically and uncritically protected by fair use, especially when their operations are antithetical to the values and parameters of fair use. Their use of third-party content should be evaluated with the criteria of fair use just like everywhere else, especially with regards to whether their operations are commercial, and whether the medium through which they share their broadcasts causes an overlap in market between them and the owners of the content. Also, sufficient acknowledgement should be made a legal requirement worldwide, allowing everyone to be credited for their content and to seek legal action when it is not provided. I'm very privileged that I had a leg to stand on when complaining to the news outlet that used my snowy video without credit, and I strongly believe everyone should have that same right. All of these potential reforms would go a long way in bringing copyright law up to date with the current media landscape, better reflecting the ways in which plagiarism and copyright infringement can occur, and offering protection to those most at risk of exploitation. Furthermore, in order to address the systemic issues which cause this exploitation to happen in the first place, we need to see a significant cultural shift in how we consume media. Instead of taking instant gratification for granted and treating content like white noise to dissociate to, we need to recondition ourselves to be patient and mindful, as well as conscious, vigilant, and critical of our watching and reading habits. Be willing to take the time to fact-check the given information and find the original creators of any uncredited sources. Send a complaint to news outlets which don't credit sources from social media and video sharing sites, and stop using their services when they don't fix their mistakes. Disparage other practices which hurt creators and employees, such as the use of generative AI. Seek out and give support to indie creators where possible. The only way to slow the steamroll of the media is for customers to stop accepting it, to stop settling for exploitative, sensationalized slop, and to demand better standards from the news industry. Everyone deserves the right to be recognized for the creation and ownership of their own content. The medium through which they share that content shouldn't exclude them from that right, let alone be used to justify exploitation by richer and more influential parties. Whether a creator has hundreds, thousands, or millions of followers, or none at all, we are all equally impacted by these billion-dollar broadcasters who significantly profit off our work and divert audience attention away from us and towards themselves, all under the ill-fitting guise of fair use. For the longevity of content creation, this needs to change. Thank you all so much for watching. Please check out all the mentioned YouTubers in the description below, and be sure to support my original Snowy video and petition. I'd love for it to become one of my most popular videos, and for Snowy to receive an on-site memorial at Adelaide Zoo, so I'd really appreciate any and all engagement they can get. I hope this video have made some of you rethink the media you consume, and that we can start pressuring the news industry to become more ethical for the sake of its employees and the creators that sustain it. In the meantime, take care, have a great day, and I'll catch you all later. Bye!